Hey there, South Mississippi. Chief Meteorologist Eric Jeansonne here. We're going to do a quick little update on the tropics this evening. Of course, we've been tracking that tropical wave for seems like over a week now. Since last week, we've been tracking a tropical wave coming off the coast of Africa. It hasn't done much yet, but today we started to see some signs of maybe some organization with that tropical wave, but there's still a lot of uncertainty with the forecast. So let's kind of take a look at how things are evolving as we do a little tropical update here. So bottom line right now, we do not have a well-defined system just yet. We don't have a well-defined center of circulation. We have an open tropical wave that's crossing around the Puerto Rico area tonight. Now, as we go throughout the next several days, it's still going to be too difficult to predict the exact track and intensity of how this is going to evolve. But one thing that we have noticed today is that the models have been trending a little bit further west with taking that tropical wave somewhere around Cuba, South Florida, potentially the southeastern Gulf as we go into Friday night into Saturday. So we're going to pay very close attention to it as we go throughout the next several days. Here's a look at the tropical wave now. Compared to yesterday, it barely had any thunderstorm activity to even talk about, and today we've really seen a lot of thunderstorm activity really blossom around Puerto Rico and north of Hispaniola. We're seeing more thunderstorm activity, which is usually a sign of a tropical wave trying to organize a little bit better. Now, looking at the visible satellite, we've kind of lost the daylight, so we're losing the image at the last couple of frames here. But when you look at the visible satellite image, you can kind of see a little bit better organization, maybe something trying to close off around Puerto Rico. But because this wave is so close to the Greater Antilles, that is going to inhibit development. So staying close to the islands is going to keep it very unorganized, at least for the next 2 to 3 days as it tracks off towards the west. It's really not until it gets over towards Cuba and South Florida by the Friday-Saturday time frame that it will reach an environment that will be a little bit more favorable for development. Wind shear is light. It starts to get away from the interaction of the mountainous terrain of the Greater Antilles, and it starts to move into those very warm waters that are over the Gulf, which the water sea surface temperatures are running about 85 to 88 degrees across that region. Notice the National Hurricane Center updated the tropical weather outlook, highlighting a large portion of the eastern Gulf now for the potential for tropical development. Remember, this is not a cone of uncertainty. It's not a forecast track. This just shows you where tropical development is possible over the next 2 to 7 days. So a tropical system can form anywhere within that orange area as we go into the weekend. So what's steering this? High pressure over the Atlantic, the clockwise flow around that is going to keep steering the tropical wave west. It will interact with Hispaniola and potentially Cuba. The question is, Friday night going into Saturday, where does the new center form? Does it form somewhere south of Cuba? Does it form over Cuba or just north of Cuba? Does it form a little bit further north, maybe off the east coast of Florida? Those are the unknowns, and until we know that, we won't really have a really good idea of where it goes. But the timing of all of this is really critical as well, because as we go into the weekend, we're going to start to see a dip in the jet stream develop. We call that a trough. That trough could potentially start to curve the tropical wave north, and depending on where it is will dictate how soon that curve towards the north will take place. So if the tropical wave is too far south, it may not feel that tug of the trough until later on, so it may be able to track a little bit further west if the tropical wave is further south. If we start to see a center developing with the tropical wave a little bit further north, it may start to curve off towards the north a little bit sooner because it starts to feel that tug of the trough a little bit sooner. So again, a lot of things in motion that will determine the overall evolution and track of this. That's why it's just important to kind of keep an eye on how this evolves over the next few days. And not a bad idea to just continue to maybe remember to go over your hurricane plans. Make sure you have all the things ready just in case things kind of evolve in a way that it could bring impacts. Right now, it's too early to say if South Mississippi will have direct impacts from this tropical disturbance. The models have trended a little bit further west. Looking at the European model, it shows a weak tropical system Sunday morning just to the west of Florida. When we look at the GFS, it has a slightly more organized system, but in that same general vicinity just to the south and west of Florida there. So again, models are trending a little bit further off towards the west with this, something we're going to have to keep a very close eye on. Other than that, the big story in South Mississippi has been the heat. Another heat advisory in effect for tomorrow. Heat index values in the 105 to 110 degree range. We'll be lucky if we get down into the upper 70s tonight. Many areas this morning woke up in the 80s. We had 80s for low temperatures. By the afternoon tomorrow, we're going to climb back up into the mid to upper 90s. And again, those heat index values in the 105 to 110 degree range. Earlier today, Trent Lott Airport in Moss Point had a heat index value of 122 degrees. Looking outside now in the Hancock Whitney Bank Tower cam in Gulfport, things are looking pretty quiet, 91 degrees and a heat index still of 106. We did have a few little pop-up storms try to develop, but that ridge of high pressure that's over us right now made it very difficult for any storms to maintain themselves. You can tell that ridge is in place with the clockwise flow of the moisture and the water vapor, pretty much centered almost right on top of northern Mississippi there. That ridge will dominate our forecast here in South Mississippi, at least for the next 2 to 3 days, but we are going to notice over the weekend that ridge of high pressure slides off towards the west. We will still be under the influence though. We will still see high temperatures this weekend in the mid to upper 90s, which is above our average. Our average is about 91 degrees. Speaking of hot, if you remember last summer was our hottest summer on record. So this chart here kind of comparing last summer to this summer. Last summer, from June 1st through this time last year, we had 26 days where the temperature hit 95 degrees or hotter. This year so far, we've had 13. As far as rainfall goes, this year, we've had over 14 inches of rain at Gulfport Biloxi International Airport. Last year, by this time, from June 1st through July 31st, we had about half of that. So certainly this year it's been hot, but maybe not as hot and not as dry as last year. 7-day forecast, again, we're going to stay very hot and humid over the next several days, and we're going to keep a very close eye on how the tropics evolve over the next few days as well.